and welcome to Movie RX, where I prescribe entertainment one movie at a time. I am your host, Dr. Benjamin, and today I have a co-host joining me, none other than a fan favorite, Derrick. Welcome, Derrick.
Hello.
Derrick, today I think we're looking at a movie that is kind of I'm betting I'm gonna go out on a limb here. This is probably a yearly watch for both of us.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, and one of my intentions with this is being that, you know, this is being released right before St. Paddy's Day, is that maybe this will be kind of a tradition for others as well. Today we're going to talk about Boondock Saints. And oh my God, this movie, there is so much to talk about. Where did you first see anything about this movie?
Probably the first time I ever saw it was also the first time I ever heard of it, and it would have been like a million years ago back in Kearney. I'm gonna guess probably 2004, if I remember correctly. You know, there were a couple of guys that we knew, Rick and Jason. They used to live in an apartment that was below us in this crappy old house we lived in, and they were like, "Hey, you guys got to check out this movie." It's got Irish guys in it, and of course they're looking at me as the token Irish guy, and like, "You'll love it. You probably know the guys that are in it."
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, we got drunk in a basement and watched it the first time, and you know, all of us had the same response as the people in the movie when the cat scene happened. And it was it was at that point where it's like, I'm fucking totally watching this again over and over and over and over. Like they had me as soon as, you know, Willem Dafoe walked in, and I was like, that's fucking Goliath. You know, that's fucking Elias. I'm in.
Right.
Like I'm absolutely watching this. I'm totally, yeah.
Yeah, for me it was pretty similar. It was right around the same time, probably around the 2003, 2004 area. There was another guy that worked at Perkins. Do you remember Aaron? We used to call him Fred.
It sounds familiar, yeah.
He was a server.
Okay.
Just kind of a strange guy. He was funnier than hell. The kind of guy that goes and quits his career in college to go work at Walmart so that he can get more material to be a stand-up comic. I mean, he's just
I know
that
exactly
kind of
what
guy.
you're talking about now. Yeah.
Super, super funny guy. Well, he showed me this movie right around that time, and man, if I didn't have some sense of pride in the Irish half that I have before this movie, I was fucking river dancing after I saw it the first time. Like, I mean, it was just it hit so deeply that it was just like, fuck yeah, man, this was just a great movie. Now, some of the basic info on it: released in 1999. Rated R. This is not a family-friendly movie. For
Depends
all
on
of my visitors, like, do not play this for your small children. My dad was totally cool, and he would have had us watching it like, 10 or whatever. This would have been a Dad and Ben movie, but except nobody fucking knew about it. So, written and directed by Troy Duffy. This was pretty well his breakout shit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he was a bartender and a bouncer.
Yeah.
Like, he was not a screenwriter.
Yeah, and this was what he made. And it was perfect. Stars Willem Dafoe, Sean Patrick Flannery, Norman Reedus. They don't have them listed on the poster, but Bill Connolly, I feel like, needs to be mentioned.
Right.
And of all people, Johnson & Johnson was in this movie. Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know, but that's okay. It was still just fucking hilarious to see him in that movie. Now something else I'm going to kind of change up in season 2 is I'm not going to do IMDb or Netflix or anything like that. I'm not going to do their descriptions. I'm just going to give kind of a brief synopsis of the movie. So what would be the best way to describe this? It's two Irish brothers that get kind of into an extraordinary situation. they have some kind of epiphany from God that they need to cleanse Boston of evil. And this follows them in that path. And they pull on a buddy that's a part of the Italian mob. They're going after Russians and Italians and all this other stuff. I mean, I guess that's really pretty much it, right? Like,
I'd say that's pretty much the short and skinny of it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just kind of how they handle it.
Couple of Irish guys, fuck you their way into being vigilantes.
Right. And the Irish way, which, I mean, oh man.
I mean, that is the Irish way, is fuck you.
Right. That room, after their first rollover, and then they take the guns and the money that they get off the guys, and they take, and they take them into that it looks okay. It looks like an IRA,
Oh yeah, like, yeah. I mean, it was pretty much like an IRA armory hold. And,
right.
It was like, take your pick, go for it.
And he just tosses them both a duffel bag and says, "Knock yourselves out." Like, it's great. Something interesting about that music during that sounds. It sounds a little bit like "Happiness is a Warm Gun."
Yeah, I was thinking like doo-wop, Earth Angel kind of stuff is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Well, they wanted to use "Happiness as a Warm Gun" for that scene.
Yeah, they couldn't fucking afford it.
It was $17 million they wanted for 30 seconds of that song.
Yeah, there were.
Can you believe that?
Duffy talks about like several examples of like songs that he wanted in the movie, and like every one of them was in the neighborhood of like $20 million a song. He's like, "Fuck you! I'm a bartender trying to get a movie made, man. Kiss my ass."
Yeah, we don't have that kind of budget.
Right.
Yeah, and he ended up, wasn't it his band that ended up doing most of the music?
His band did at least like 3 or 4 songs. Yeah.
Yeah, like at least a bunch of it. Yeah. Which, I mean, so why don't we start there with this movie? The music opening up this movie just gives you, it just tells you how this movie is going to be with that Irish jig going. I mean, it's got the whistle. It's got what's that called, the instrument that's like, it's like a bagpipe but without the drones.
You talking like a uilleann pipe?
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't remember the name, but I mean, it's so beautiful. And then of course, like you've got this great music that you're just starting off, with this really good, panning scenery and all of that stuff, and then somebody gets hit in the face with a stake. and it just kind of sets the precedent for what the movie is going to be. And beat with tongues, as my producer pointed out, I am who is the master, So I mean, this movie starts off with just a lot of fun.
It starts out like really kind of lighthearted, jovial. It's like 2 brothers fucking around in a meatpacking plant. You've got the chick with the rule of thumb. Like that whole scene going on, and then like it goes into like them at St. Patty's Day, at like their favorite pub, like I mean it starts out very almost innocent, and then it takes a left turn real fucking quick.
Right, and well, I mean, because they go to the bar. It's St. Patty's Day. Like everybody's Irish on St. Patty's Day. They're at the bar. They're drinking. They got their Irish buddy there, or their Italian buddy there. Russians come in. They bought the block, and they're closing the bar. And they're closing an Irish bar on St. Patty's Day.
In an Irish neighborhood.
Tell me that that's not looking for some shit to happen. Like,
right, yeah.
You're going into an Irish bar and telling Irishmen they can't drink on St. Patty's Day? Like, you're intentionally trying to start some shit at that point. And they do. And they light a guy's ass on fire. And... And they like really make a big deal out of how his joke about Chekhov, this here's McCoy, find us a spot, we've got an away team.
Yes.
Just fucking great. Star Trek reference there. I love that. Now I'm trying to remember, was this the movie that had a bunch of deleted scenes that involved their mom?
Yes. There was a bunch of deleted scenes with like their mom in it, where like their mom was going to explain some things in there. And they got rid of the whole thing, which is unfortunate because there was a really good like back and forth of like which twin was the older twin or whatever.
Right. Now, so something I kind of want to broach on is there's so many crazy facts about this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. This whole thing's just like, this was a saga in and of itself. Like, just the production of the fucking movie was just its own saga, let alone the actual movie.
Right. Well, its release was just weeks after Columbine.
Correct.
Which was April 20th of
2000.
2000, right? And so a couple weeks after that, this movie was supposed to be released. And they canned it. It was released in 5 theaters nationwide. 5 theaters. Like, seriously. So they spent $6 million to make this movie. And their return was $30,000. Like, I mean, it was almost 31, but seriously, $31,000 out of $6 million that they spent to make it.
There was a lot of shit. I mean, like up until before they even got to the release, there was a lot of stuff involved where like, like Troy Duffy wrote this as, like in the background while he was working as a bartender and a bouncer. He's working in bars around Boston and working on this fucking script that was loosely based off of shit that he saw while he was at work or in his own neighborhood or whatever. And then because he had friends in the movie business, it somehow wound up getting into Miramax. And Miramax was like, yeah, no, we love this. We'll give you a shitload of money. And then Duffy's got kind of a reputation of being a dick. And he pissed off so many fucking people that were interested in the movie. Got into arguments, like stupid arguments with like potential actors that were going to be in the movie. And it got to a point where Miramax was like, all right, fine, fuck you. We're not going to give you our money anymore. You've pissed off too many people, too many actors. We're not going to give you anything. We're done. We're out. So he had to find like somebody else to like take his shit and fund the movie. And he wound up finding this dinky little production company. I can't remember the name of them right off the top of my head right now. But found some dinky ass little company that gave him the $6 million. And then by just like, a wing and a prayer, he was able to actually get this thing made. So it was like by the grace of God, he even got the damn movie made in the first fucking place. And then it comes out like right around the same time period as Columbine. When that whole thing went down, it wound up being like right around that same time period. And I mean, there were so many things that came out in that time period that just got squashed because of those two dipshits in Colorado, and he wound up being one of them. Yeah.
Well, and it was I kind of get it. Like, I understand that people wanted to have some kind of reverence or acknowledgement or something of what happened there. But I mean, even to this day, with the things surrounding Columbine, we're still talking about the wrong things.
Right.
As far as how that stuff all played out. But I mean, Marilyn Manson canceled a show in Denver.
Manson
canceled his whole tour.
Yep, canceled a whole tour, if I remember correctly. It impacted sales of one of his albums. I don't think it was Hollywood. I think it was the second of the Antichrist trilogy, if I remember right. Mechanical Animals, I think, wound up taking a hit out of that. There were movies that got canceled, that were going to come out. There were movies that were impacted that had already been out, kind of a thing. And I mean, yeah, like you said, I get it, but I mean, it was a big overcorrection in terms of trying to deal with and stem out violence, right? I'm gonna get on a whole fucking tirade about that.
Right.
But it was certain people trying to be like, oh shit, okay, yeah, we got to do something about violence, and like that that's not what caused this. Like, this is the same old argument that we had back in the 90s about violent video games. Violent movies or angry music is not why those two dipshits walked into a school and shot the place up.
Right. And it's been notorious since then that we still turn a blind eye to the things that do cause these things.
Of course, because the like what we would actually have to change that causes this kind of shit would require actual work. We don't want to do that.
It would require work, and it would also require making things accessible that aren't particularly right now.
Goddamn commie. You're socialist. You want shit to be available to people? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No, it's rub some dirt in it. Yeah, that's another one. No, I do remember. I remember the day of the Columbine shooting. That when I went home and I saw my mom, like my mom was sitting in the living room when I got home. I walked in. She gave me a hug, and then we sat down and watched the news for pretty much the rest of the evening. And the thing that I remember most was how everything else had everything to do with why we have these people with compulsions to do violent things in places with large amounts of people. And yes, it was video games, it was movies, it was rock and roll. Like we're blaming musicians. I don't know about you, but I don't know that I would have survived high school without some of the angry white boy music that I listened to going through high school. Like, that was part of the reason why I was able to thrive was some of those violent outlets that I didn't have to be violent for because somebody else was already being violent for me. Right. Whether it was in music or video games or whatever. So
it's all an act of catharsis, right? It's like when you're looking at it in that view, yeah, it's all just cathartic experience at that point of what you're trying to go through. So if you've got like screamy, angry music, you're if you are somebody that's going through some shit, you're able to relate to that. And you punch the fuck out of your steering wheel instead of, keeping that bottled up inside until it decides it's going to erupt. And then you punch the fuck out of somebody in, the hallway of your school.
Right.
Yeah.
Or with whatever you have at hand. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know this. And it's really funny how like, because like now we're talking about something that's socio-political on a movie podcast. And the reason why I want to stop and point that out is because like this is part of the reason why this was so important for so many people was because this movie was associated with something that was really something that affected a lot of people my age.
Well, and even before Columbine happened, okay, if Columbine hadn't happened at all and this movie came out, this movie would have still been just as impactful as it was because of the subject matter. Where it's talking about these two guys that are tired of the law failing. The law that's supposed to be taking care of criminals and supposed to be protecting innocent people, and it's failing on a continuous basis to where they finally go, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to solve the problem ourselves. That was, that had a lot of impact and said a lot of things to a lot of people back 25 years ago. And unfortunately, because we don't fucking learn from our mistakes in this place, it's still just as timely now as it was 25 years ago. There might have been a thing about this that went down with some health insurance people a while back that may have been just in line with this same kind of thing. Not to completely bring political turmoil into this podcast, but
well, and really, I don't. I think it was with my sister. I told her I don't mind political stuff in my podcast. I just prefer that it not be hateful.
Right. Well,
So,
I get that.
Right.
Unfortunately, it winds up, it doesn't take long for it to get very like choose a side, right? We're not in an environment that has, intelligent discourse when it comes to, one side versus the other. It's, you're either with me or you're against me.
Right.
Which is a very unfortunate thing. Yeah.
Which is actually really different from prior to this movie coming out. The 90s was a very different time politically. Like it wasn't so divisive.
Yeah, I mean it was, and I think part of why it wasn't as divisive as it might have seemed to be. Sometimes I wonder if we look back at things like the '90s or the early 2000s, like pre 9/11. If we look back at that shit with like graduation goggles to a certain extent, but it was because you didn't have things like social media, right? Like the people that would have been so extreme on either side, they didn't have a platform. You had, if you wanted to talk to somebody that was, a far right extremist, you had to go to like a gun show in Council Bluffs and find like the right table that was in the back corner. And then you might be able to like find the right guy in hushed tones. But if you wanted to find somebody that was just as extreme on the left side, that was the guy named Rod, also known as Guy on Couch, that had smoked himself, stupid, and would sit there, stoned out of his mind and tell you all sorts of just weird ass conspiracy theories that weren't even remotely true.
Right. And well, I mean, so much of like the conservative end of it, like there were so many different outlets, like that were national. You had the Rush Limbaughs, you had the Sean Hannitys, you had the, I don't think Tucker Carlson was really a thing yet, but, you had those commentaries, on your radio, on your television, in your email blasts before email blasts were a thing, right. All of these different things. And the left didn't really have that. They had Comedy Central. Which was pretty much it.
We had Comedy Central, but we also had like the arts in general. Right. Anybody that tries to say, get politics out of your art, stop being political in your music, stop being political in your movies. Art is political. There's just no way around it. It's going to be.
Of course, a lot of the people that say, get politics out of your art
are usually people that don't appreciate
are usually
art.
The right-wing people, and a lot of those are metal guys. And I don't know if you've noticed anything about a lot of metal these days, but there's a lot of metal guys that are doing a lot of like super patriotic type music and stuff like that.
I'm actually gonna really go against that. I'm gonna have to seriously disagree on that one. A lot of no, actually, a lot of metal guys, a lot of us are actually, pretty liberal or pretty centrist, or like just left of center. Like Corey Taylor, I'll tell you, he's just left of center. And it's because a lot of them, they're to be in that particular genre. Metal is more than just a style of music. It's also like a cultural, like subculture, kind of a thing.
Right.
We have our own people. We've got our own language, kind of a thing. Right. And, a lot of us come from like fucked up situations and broken homes, and like we didn't fit in. We were the weird kid in class. We were probably somebody that needed mental health care that couldn't afford to have mental health care because everything comes with a fucking price tag.
Right.
So empathy winds up being a big thing, and it's something that a lot of metalheads have. A lot of people in the metal genre, the metal world, however you want to put it. They have a lot of empathy. They have a lot of understanding towards the freaks of the world, the people that don't quite fit in. So no, you don't really have a whole lot of that conservative shit. Now, the guys that are playing that patriot card, like the fucking the 5-finger, dick punch, guys of the world. Five-finger donkey punch. Those,
I guess mainstream. A lot of the mainstream guys are kind of doing that.
And that's some of those guys, but a lot of that is just it's either performative nonsense or those are guys that are hedging their bets because they know who's going to pay them, or they know where they're going to be touring a large in a large population. So if you've got some of these guys where like they know they pretty much live and die inside of the Midwest, right? They rely on like the state fair circuit to be able to get them in. They're going to be doing pantomime, right? They're fucking talking down or however the hell you want to put it. They're pacifying conservative types that live in those areas because they know they're going to buy tickets and they're going to come to their fucking show when they're coming through, bumfuck Nebraska, and they need to make sure that they've got 20,000 people, at that arena to justify their gas price before they can get out and back out to the coast.
Fair enough. Yeah. See, and I just.
You get some of the
I guess the reason why it feels that way is because a lot of the people like I was telling you about that got me through high school, a lot of those angry white boy bands have kind of gone that way now, and maybe it's because that's the only place that they're getting the attention is at those county fairs and things like that because they're older.
The other side of it though is where you get some of those guys where they've changed colors, if you will. It's because like when you're young and you don't have a whole lot to have to worry about, you might be able to rage against the machine all you want, but then you get into your 40s and you're like, fuck, dude, the machine's pretty comfortable.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
You see like a lot of like the old like 80s the 80s like hair metal guys where they're coming out. Yeah, they're some of them are pretty fucking conservative, but it's because they're also like 60 and they're falling into the rhetoric and they're seeing the bullshit and they're like, brown people are the fucking problem. It's like, dude, if you go to Brazil, those are still the only people that like buy your shit and go to your shows. Shut the fuck up. Like you need those people. Shut up. It's like the line out of Batman, you live long enough to become the villain.
Live long enough to become the villain. That's I really don't want to live that long. My producer is poking fun at me. Okay, so
I think
we got away from the movie just a hair. Playing distractible here for a second. You know what? This is actually a really good time to just kind of talk about some of your favorite scenes. I'll go first. The moment when Smecker comes in and he puts the headphones on and he starts listening to that operetta. And going around and looking for bullet holes and checking underneath the guys and everything. And he's like dancing around as he's doing it. And that drew me into the movie. Like everything up to that point had given me a good laugh and everything. But Smecker's just out of this worldness, completely unbelievable character. But he made it believable. Why? Because it's Willem fucking Dafoe. So this unrealistic character made real by Willem Dafoe really drew me in on this movie. And that first scene where he's walking around and when he's busting that detective's chops, what's his name? Greenlee,
yes.
Yeah, when he's busting Greenlee's chops over, Sweet and Low. So yeah, I really loved that opening scene, especially with Smecker doing the stuff.
Yeah, that really set the that definitely set the pace for Willem Dafoe and then the Three Stooges from Boston PD.
Yeah, that's who the fuck I am. Yeah, it was a good scene. What about yours?
I mean, I've definitely got a lot. I some of them are going to be pretty fucking obvious, right?
Right.
But I mean, definitely just the banter back and forth between Connor and Murph. You know, like the way that those two actually like really sold it that they were brothers of some sort. And I mean, the two best examples are probably the argument about the rope. You know, when they're getting the weapons, right? And it was, oh, you're stupid fucking rope. You know, Charlie Bronson's always got that shit. Why not?
Oh,
like,
is that so, Rambo?
Right? Yeah. As he pulls out the big ass fucking knife out of the out of the dude's bag. Like that was definitely a favorite. Or when they're bitching at each other in the fucking when they're in the air grate. Trying to drop in on the Russians, and they're, you know, like the one dude's bitching about the fucking rope, and they get into a fist fight in this goddamn air duct. They get into a goddamn fist fight, and then like they wind up falling and dropping into the hotel room, and all hell breaks loose. But just the fact that you like the zero, like in like not even realizing or giving a shit of like where you are or how it's appropriate or anything along those lines. You're just busting each other's balls, and it's just that brotherly like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you right now because you're being a dick.
Right. Well, and that was the first moment that it really started to feel like they really were brothers.
Yes.
Because like up to that point they got along pretty good. Like, and I mean, I don't know what your sibling situation is. I have sisters, but my sister and I, like, we appeared to everybody else like we got along great. But at home, it was World War fucking 12. Like, I mean, we fought the next 10 world wars in our home. And it was, but we never showed anybody. Nobody ever saw that. Nobody ever saw that side of us outside of the home. So, but this was a moment where they were stuck in this air vent, and then it was just like, you know what? I'm sick of your shit. I'm gonna beat your ass. Like, and then they start fighting. It's great. And then, you know, of course, that leads into one of my favorite scenes when they bust through the ceiling and they spin around and then they shoot everybody.
Russians. Yep.
But then in comes Smecker with the rest of Boston PD, and oh my God, that scene where he's walking around the room and he's trying to pull things from the different detectives, trying to get them to help him figure out this situation. Like, he's already got it figured out. He just wants them to figure it out and try to figure out what's going on here. And so as he's walking around the room and figuring so that tells us what? He was shot at a downward angle, which says he was on his knees. Ah, good. Greenlee, what else does it tell us? He was shot at a downward angle.
He's like, you fucking guys. My favorite out of that, you know, out of that whole that particular scene is when he's I think it's Duffy that he's talking to, where he's like, you know, do you have a theory to go with that tie? And you know, and he's like, you know what? Fuck all these other guys. This was their main target. They were after the fag man. And, you know, and everybody has that, oh shit. And they're like, wait, what the fuck did you just say? And he goes, fat man. I totally said fat man. And that's where, you know, and he goes, Freud was right. You know, talking specifically about Freudian slip. And like, oh, fuck. Only the nerds actually understood that.
Right. Yep. No, that was good. I mean, that brings up something else that's kind of from this movie, that as a general thing with this movie, some of it doesn't fly well in society today, as far as like some of the terminology used.
There are certain terms that did not age.
Yeah, they're not coming up with the modern day very well. No. As an example, fag man. Right. Anytime Willem Dafoe, who is playing a gay character, interacts with a gay character, it's
because he was self-hating.
Yeah,
like he was toxically masculine, right? And and he was self-hating as a gay character, regardless of how flamboyant he was throughout the whole movie. And so anytime he interacted with not just interacting with gay people, but anytime he interacted with somebody that was like stereotypically gay, that's when like the bad parts came out.
You know, the cuddling thing.
Yes.
that scene, I'm not gonna lie, back in 2003, 2004, whenever it was when I saw this, that scene had me fucking rolling. Now, not as much, but it's
you can still acknowledge it as
it's still a little
funny.
bit of a smile.
Yeah, you can still acknowledge it as funny. You just don't need to say it, right? You know, it still has the same effect. You just don't need to use the same words. Things are things are still allowed to be funny. And it's still allowed to have the same impact. You know, like it wasn't just in the last 20 years that particular word became bad. It was bad back then too. To call somebody, to call somebody that particular phrase. I'm not going to say it here any more than I already have. But like to use that particular phrase was considered to be bad even 20 years ago. That you said something like that. And that was the point of why he used those particular terms. So you could still laugh at it and you could still understand, the point that he's trying to make because it still fits 20 years later.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I think that I think really a lot of it also has to do with who it is at that time, because that was still like in the early 2000s. That was still when it was kind of before don't say gay, like, the don't say gay thing, the that kind of movement. And that was still when, I guess really the only way to put it is when people hadn't figured out that it still wasn't okay, that when they'd say, when I say fag, I don't mean a gay person, or when I say a queer, I don't mean a gay person, like when that was still the argument. Like
I always remember like the old George Carlin quote, the old George Carlin bit from like his way back days. I think this would have probably been like back in the 70s. Yeah. Where he was talking about, growing up in the 50s in New York, and it was, fag was just like a weirdo, right? Or he was just like the sissy in the group, or the guy that was being a pain in the ass. Oh, fag's going home. He's going home. Kind of a thing. Guys busting out early. Whereas if they were going to talk about a gay person, that was queer. Like somebody, if somebody was gay, he was a queer. That was when they would go off of that. But I mean, those colloquials change over time, and it became a lot more obviously. That particular word was more synonymous with being derogatory towards gay people. Well,
and I think that's also an important thing to note, is that like language does evolve.
Yeah.
Sometimes
words matter.
Right. Sometimes I get kind of frustrated because another modern one that you get a lot of hate for is retarded. If you're using it about a person, like that's not nice. Like you're hurting somebody.
Which is the point. Yeah.
Right.
if you're using that term, you're not trying to be complimentary.
But if I'm talking about how the toaster that I have downstairs is retarded, because the 4 mark does not mean 4 minutes. It means like something like between 1.5 minutes and 1.45 seconds. It's not advanced. And so like I'd constantly make that argument, but I mean there's still the people that insist that it's still just not a good word.
Well, and it's you gotta always consider context. Context is always the thing that's most important when you're talking about words. But context doesn't scale. Context works when you're in small conversations or in small groups. The moment that you're talking to a large group of people or something that winds up being national, context is not a thing. Context goes right out the fucking window.
Yeah, the example that I would give for how, context matters with a large group of people is, if somebody's running for president and they say something like that, then, that would be the end of their career, but that's not a fucking thing anymore.
No. That's called spin. Spin.
You can say anything you fucking want and you can be president now. So, hey, maybe we should run on the next ticket. Okay. Yeah. So my producer just chimed in with a story. She used to work at a facility that worked with individuals with intellectual disabilities, and how the staff had gone to a conference at one point, and somebody at this conference, speaking to a large group of people in the industry, had used the word retarded in that kind of a context, it's bad. Like you just don't do that. Because in that environment, it's a hurtful word. And it's intentionally hurtful in that regard. And I feel like that's kind of a thing with a lot of the terminology and words and things like that are used in this movie, period. I mean, they use racial slurs and things like that. Well, when Rocco goes and talks to Yakavetta,
the joke. Yes.
Yeah, the joke when he insists on dropping the N-bomb. Like, he won't accept him saying black guy.
Yeah,
like, he won't accept it.
Yeah, and Rocco doesn't want to, right? Every time
he doesn't feel comfortable.
They correct him every time where like he's telling the joke and he's like, yeah, and the black guy, and then they correct him with their word that they want to use and goes, yeah, that's what I said. Anyway, yeah,
that's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and I think a lot of that, I mean, and even then in that context, that's one that's just, oh.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, that's that's
a different
word.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. Different level. But you also have to understand that part of that is they are illustrating a particular group, right? They're illustrating a particular moment in time. They're illustrating a particular group of people, and a type of social, class of sorts. People that use those particular terms and phrases like they're nothing, and especially like that time period, East Coast, a lower economic tax bracket. Those particular words would fly around like it was nothing. And I mean, that's all that they were, that's all that they were just trying to illustrate is, you're in this particular group. You're going to hear those things. Like those of us that grew up in the Midwest, right? You grew up in the Midwest, late 90s, early 2000s, bunch of Hispanic population around here. What are some particular phrases that you heard on a pretty regular basis that are not good phrases to hear? Right? They're not good. They're not good words to use, but they got used a lot, right? Because, that was just how it was. I'm not excusing it. I'm just explaining it. That's right. That's just a normal thing of like particular groups of people where they talk that way. They still fucking talk that way.
Yeah. Then there's not really a whole lot you can do besides, I mean, something that I've kind of, I was going to say something that I've kind of made myself like a little bit more. I have tried to make it more a point that if I'm uncomfortable with somebody utilizing terms, especially racial terms, that are not okay, I have made a point to say something. A lot of the time, for a good portion of my adult life, it's kind of just been, you know what, that's, if they're going to use that, that's fine. That's on them. I'm not going to, and I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to like that they do. But now I'm done. Like I'm calling people on it. And which actually is kind of why sometimes this movie can be a little bit hard to watch because of, because of the mix and the wops and the, all the stuff all the things that they're throwing out like all the time. And you're just like, God, can you guys just stop? Like, just fucking stop it already. But again, like, if they're going to accurately portray what South Boston is going to be like, then they have to do it. Especially at that time. I mean, I don't know if I have any listeners in South Boston, I am not shaming you people. Like, I'm just saying. But
we're not going for the stereotypes. But we're kind of going for the stereotypes.
A little bit. I mean, at least this movie was. So I'm not dragging a potato on a string through South Boston because I know I'd have better luck with a beer.
Yes. That is one of my favorite lines.
You'd probably have better luck with a beer. Yeah, I love that. So a couple of interesting facts about this movie. The word fuck and its derivatives were used 246 times in this movie.
They certainly illustrated the diversity of the word.
They certainly illustrated the diversity of the word. That is, I think, now you might think that's a lot, but it's still like 42 on the list of movies that have the most fucks spoken. It's only number 42 in the top 50. So it's not that bad.
I was gonna say, some people might think that's a lot. I'd call it a fucking Tuesday, but I mean,
I was like,
just me.
It felt comfortable. It was a comfortable amount of fucks to have in a, what is it, hour and a half, 2 hour movie. Yeah. So I mean, a couple of interesting facts about it. Oh, I'm trying to look now. I'm looking at your stuff. You've sent me a book. Fucking nowhere. The joke. Holy shit. We actually hit a lot of this stuff already. All right, give me another one of your favorite scenes.
Let's see here. All right, fuck it. The cat. We gotta talk about the cat.
Okay, so the context to this. I'm getting my Trump hands out so that I can move them around as I'm talking here.
Easy there.
so
your
you've
hands
got
are too big. They can't be Trump hands.
Yeah, I guess. I've got small hands for a bass player. I've got big hands for a Trump. So the context here is that you've got three guys that have just figured out that they're a part of this. That they're now forming this little group of
vigilante
saints.
Killers.
Yeah, vigilante saints that go and kill people who are criminals and just generally evil. Well, they go back to the apartment and they've just got a shitload of cash for like out of a briefcase. They've ordered pizza. They've got shitloads of beer. They're all drunk as shit. And they're sitting around a table talking about how they're going to kill a bunch more evil people. And Rocco, do you want to give the line?
Oh, he's talking about, they can dunk my nuts in marinara sauce so they can get a taste of home. It's like,
well,
fuck it.
Well, they're giving him fellatio.
Right? It's like, fuck it. I'm done. It is done. And then he bangs his fists on the table, which accidentally, which gets one of the guns to accidentally go off, and it hits one of the cats, and this fucking cat just blows up into just meat salad on the fucking wall.
It liquefies the cat. It is a paint. It is a level of paint, a coat of paint on the wall.
Yeah. And
they, of course, they freak out, like, oh my God, and they jump away from the wall and everything. I can't believe that just fucking happened. And then one of the best lines of the whole movie, I think, is when Rocco looks at the gray matter on the wall and says, "Is it dead?" This cat is fucking puree. Is it dead? It was.
I mean, they're drunk. They're in shock. Yeah.
They had to have been drunk.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like my producer just pointed out, Rocco was like, "I'm hit." Yeah, that was a good scene. I love that.
Yeah.
And then there was actually a really profound scene.
Troy Duffy put that in because there was a chick that he had dated that had a cat, and apparently she was a real pain in the ass. And he was just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm putting this in. This is a self-indulgent scene. I'm putting this in for me.
That's awesome. No, the scene after it was actually pretty profound as far as the story is concerned, though, because then they bring something up that had kind of been broached a little bit in the scene before, but they have a real, like, a getting real moment with Rocco. And they're like, man, they sent you into a room with 9 guys with a revolver. Like, they gave you a gun with 6 bullets to kill 9 guys. This was a setup. They were trying to fucking kill you. And he wouldn't buy it. Like, and they were trying to be real with him. Like, dude, like, come on. Like, you have to know that they don't give a shit about you and that they're trying to kill you. But he doesn't believe it. And then he goes and he creates another crime scene.
Yeah. He finds out they were right.
Yep.
And
finds out they were right and
turns
goes and
the bar
visits
into
some.
using his own term, it was a goddamn turkey shoot.
It was a turkey shoot. Went to a cafe, a bar, like a bar and grill sort of thing. Meets a couple of guys. They spill the whole thing for him. And then he shoots every Italian guy in the place and then runs away. And then he busts in to the apartment for another really great scene where he's freaking out. We gotta fucking go. And he's pulling, like, I don't know why he was grabbing fucking records to put into this bag.
He's just freaking out. Yeah.
He was just grabbing whatever he could to put into this bag to get the fuck out. Grabs records, grabs an iron, grabs some stuff out of the cupboard and all of that stuff. And then they fucking Norman Reedus, he's just all like, yeah, I love this shit. Let's go, And so they finally get ready to leave. And then Rocco gets yelled at by his girlfriend and her friend.
The crackheads, yep.
Rocco, what? And then he has to explain about the cat.
Yeah.
Now,
because I thought it would bring closure to our relationship. His interactions with her are really unhealthy. Oh yeah. They were not in a great relationship at all.
The fact that he what your precious little, you tell me that cat's name and I'll shoot myself in the fucking head. Your precious little and Skippy. Oh, what fucking color was it, bitch? Like, he just, oh my God, it's so bad.
Yeah.
But the part that really got me in that scene, I mean, it doesn't age well because of the I guess the connotation that it could have had at the time when her friend, his girlfriend's friend, tells him that he can't talk to her like that, and he shuts your fat ass, Ravy. I can't buy a pack of smokes without running into 9 guys you fucked. And it's like, yeah, that's slut shaming.
Yeah,
but
is.
My God, the first time I saw that movie, I almost couldn't breathe with the way that he pulled back with his hair and everything in that scene. And the funniest thing about all of that shit with Rocco is that was him.
Yeah.
That was Rocco. Like, that wasn't a character. That was David Della Rocco. Like, that's who he was. And he was just in the movie.
Yeah, the guy. Yeah. He's friends with Troy Duffy. Now, granted, he does have a classical acting background, but
right.
I mean, he was friends with Duffy. Duffy wrote the character Rocco for him about him.
Right. So he just goes into this movie playing him. Yeah. Like, it's just fucking hilarious. And that just makes it even funnier when you get into all the other stuff that goes on with that character in some of their other interactions and everything. But
I mean, it was like Rocco was the interesting, he was the loose cannon, if you will. Like the other two, with the brothers, like they were on a mission from God, right? To quote Blues Brothers for a second, they were on their mission from God. They were doing their thing, and Rocco was kind of their connection into the underworld to be able to find guys that they could kill. But Rocco wasn't 100% like in on the gag, right? He wasn't 100% like in on the mission, where he did things that were outside of the line, like when he when he holds a gun to the priest's head, to get him to tell Smecker certain things in the confessional booth, like that almost got him fucking killed. Rocco he wasn't the worst guy, but he wasn't a good guy either. Like the guy did shit for the Italian mob. He was a criminal. He was a numbers guy. He was just lower on the totem pole. But he also didn't fit with, their particular line of like, don't fuck around, otherwise we will kill you kind of a thing. He did stupid shit. Eventually they would have probably have had to take him out had he not already been taken out by Jacovetta. But yeah, it was an interesting dynamic, with the three of them all the time, where he was always this like loose cannon that would pop off and do stupid shit. And these guys are just, goddamn, we're just trying to do what God tells us to.
Right.
You keep fucking it up, man. You keep making this difficult for us.
Right. Now, we could probably do a 3-hour fucking episode on this movie, honestly. But seeing where we're sitting at on the time anyway, we're going to kind of jump into one of the deep ends of this whole thing. At the end of the movie, it brings into question I kind of talked about it with my sister in a couple of episodes, the right thing to do versus the official thing to do.
Yep.
And all of that stuff. And that really kind of becomes a theme of this movie entirely. Is, the whole end of the movie in the credits is just interviews with people around Boston about what they think about the Saints, is what they're doing right. And, is it okay? Should they be allowed to do it? Should they, it is kind of an ethical conundrum, and moral conundrum, really. There's a lot of varying different opinions. Some are, I love how some of the people are just like, no comment.
Yeah. those people are those are the smart ones. Like,
right.
Nope, I ain't saying shit.
Because, and a lot of that's because, where do you sit? You're sitting here going, that's not how things are supposed to be done. Like we have a justice system for a reason, with a judge and jury and so that we don't have people playing those roles, and things like that. But then, Murph says earlier in the movie when they were sitting at the table, guys go home and they turn on the news and they see how all of these horrible, awful, evil people get off after, spending a couple of hours in jail. And how are they supposed to feel about that? When they could go to jail for writing a bad check, or something like that. All of these awful things that these people do, and yet they don't get touched. It can feel kind of frustrating for law-abiding citizens that criminals get off using our justice system.
Yeah, totally.
So it really is one of those things where I think on any level, I think just about anybody can really feel both ends of the argument. If they really look inside themselves, and think, God, it really isn't fair. But I still understand that there's a reason why the system exists and why we use it the way we do.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty big part of the movie. Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
That's the whole point of the movie. Yeah. The whole point of the movie is, pretty much like the ethical quandary, the moral quandary of, should these guys be allowed to do this shit? Right. Like the people that they're killing, they're bad guys. And now they're all just dead bad guys. Right. That's the whole thing. But, and then, yeah, with the interviews there at the end, yes, we do have a legal system, and the system is there for a reason, right? Because again, things that don't scale, the tribal justice, that's not something that's going to work, right? Where you can, you're like, I have a strong sense of right and wrong. Cool. I'm glad you do. The guy next to you fucking doesn't.
Right.
And,
right.
And as human beings, we're flawed and we need fucking rules because we're idiots. And so that's why you have that's why you have the legal system. That's why you have the justice system. Unfortunately, and this is the point that they're talking about, where you've got like bad guys getting off, is the way that law works and the way that lawyers work is that it's not about the law. It is about the interpretation of the law and how they're able to spin it and how they're able to interpret what that law actually means in front of the judge and the jury. and then the judge and the jury makes the decision based off of the interpretation, and then they're able to come to their own conclusions. There is a huge amount of potential manipulation that can happen with that, to where if you have the right lawyer, they could fucking, they can interpret their way out of, a guilty verdict. Just with the way that they put things, it winds up being, theater at that point, and it's all a game, and it's just making sure that they are able to come out on top with their explanation and their interpretation of the events and their interpretation of the law, so that way the conclusions get steered in the correct direction. That's not even coming into corruption that you can run into, where the judge gets paid off, or the jurors get, the juries get paid off, things like that. Like, yeah, we see that shit get, in movies all the time, but you bet your ass it happens all the fucking time in the really real world. Nobody is impossible to find. As much as they try to make people anonymous, for juries to where you can't find their addresses and shit like that. Bullshit. Anybody can find you, and then, you can scare the piss out of somebody to where they wind up giving a guilty or not guilty verdict, or you pay them off, and then they wind up saying whatever the hell you want. And jury duty doesn't pay that fucking well. You hand somebody 30 grand, tax free, 30 grand's 30 grand. Fuck them. It's not my mom he killed. Hell with it. I'll take the 30 grand. Yeah,
I like that Crow reference. Really real world.
I use that all the time. Yes.
I know.
It's the really real world. Yes, that is the thing I say all the time.
Yeah, just shoot back to Crow. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to that one. That one also has Derrick in it, from season 1.
And that could be another one. That's another one where you could argue vigilante justice in that one, right? He came back from the dead to kill the guys that killed him. If you're looking at it from a moral and ethical standpoint, is that a right thing to do? Well, no. I mean, killing is wrong, but if you're killing bad people, does that make it less wrong? And that's where you get like the whole ending credits of the Boondock Saints is people pretty much
let's get busy.
Yeah, right. That fucking guy.
That guy. And he's my favorite.
It's people coming to terms with their own their own ethics and their own morals and what they're comfortable with. I mean, how many times have we heard somebody say, dead pedophiles don't recommit? Right. Or how many times, us living in the Midwest, how many times have you heard, dude breaks into my house, that'll be the last time he does it.
Right.
Because, he was a bad guy, now he's a dead bad guy. Exactly. Yeah, we don't call 911 in this house. Exactly.
I saw another good one. One of the families I serve has a sign that says, we use wireless home protection.
Jesus.
And it has a picture of a gun with a bullet coming out. I was like, okay, that's good. I like that.
I mean, that's creative. You got to give them that one. But I mean, I've had numerous conversations with people talking about Luigi in the same context, with what happened, with the health insurance guy. Like, I'm not going to say what he did was the right thing to have done. I can understand where he came from. Right. I'm not going to say it was the right thing to do. I am going to say that I understand where he came from in that, because it's the same kind of thing where you've got people that are playing the system, and you have people that are poor and sick and vulnerable that are getting taken advantage of and getting fucked over. And somebody finally just broke and said, you know what? Enough. And they fucking did something about it. I'm not saying what they did was the right thing to do, but they did something about it. And then you have your own ethics and your own sense of morals and whatnot on how you can justify or disagree with whatever was done. It's exactly what we're talking about with the Boondock Saints. All of those guys that got killed, all of them bad guys, every last one of them. Some of those guys had families, right? They've got kids and shit. So those are kids that now don't have parents because they got killed for being bad guys. But you can look at it as being a law-abiding citizen going, fuck that guy, he was a bad guy. He's a dead bad guy. Fuck him.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the most apt way I think I've ever heard it put is, I don't agree with it. I understand it, but I don't agree with it. Like
Chris Rock talking about O.J. Simpson.
Right. Right.
I'm not saying O.J. should have killed his wife, but I understand.
Yeah. Now I'm not saying that, making jokes about, spousal or child abuse is funny.
No,
it's not funny. But like that whole thing, yeah. I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay too. I think that's an okay position to have on it. So if I were to ask you if you had medicine in this movie, what would you tell me it is?
Don't know, to be perfectly honest on that one. I would say probably a strong sense of justice. Maybe not a strong sense of right and wrong, but there's probably a strong sense of justice in this. Definitely a strong sense of camaraderie of sorts. With between the two brothers, Rocco. When Billy Connolly comes in, as the Duke. Duffy and the cop, or not Duffy, but Willem Dafoe and the cops. Definitely very much like sticking with your tribe, if you will, your particular groups, and taking it upon yourself to protect what's important to you. I would say if there was some sort of a medicinal value that you're looking for, I would say it's probably that of understanding what's important to you and showing value for it, or showing how much it's valuable to you.
That's a good one. I like that, actually. That is kind of unexpected. So like you've given me more to take from this movie than I had been. So I appreciate that. Thank you. For me, the medicine is actually right square in the beginning. Like one of the first lines spoken, by one of the priests. And it's kind of the reason why I've decided to not keep my mouth shut, when it comes to people speaking ignorantly, and out of turn. When the priest he says, that there is another kind of evil that we don't often acknowledge, and that is the indifference of good men. When people stand by and let injustice happen when they could have stepped in. I think that is probably the most profound thing that I've taken from this movie, is that I can't stand by and let things happen anymore.
Can't give in to the Genovese syndrome.
Right. And I have a yearly reminder, which is kind of nice. I mean, the fact that I want to watch this movie on St. Paddy's Day every year is just, it's because of the movie.
Right.
But it is nice having that reminder every year that, hey, you don't stand by and let injustice happen.
Right.
So that's what it is for me. I have a
feeling you're going to be running into that a lot over the next couple of years.
I am. It's gonna keep me busy. Honestly, I think I almost wish I got paid for it, because like it's gonna be like a second job. So yeah. Well, thanks for having the gumption to come on and talk about, such a hard movie to talk about.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we've been on here for
an hour and a half.
Over an hour.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now we did get distracted. My producer pointed out we got distracted quite a bit.
In our defense, she's supposed to be the babysitter.
She is, yeah. So I mean, we'll go ahead and lay that blame.
I knew that would get me yelled at.
So yeah. All right. Well, if you've got a movie or anything that's moved you or been medicine for you, you can let me know. Come on the show. Just send me an email at contact@movie-rx.com. You can also send me a text message or a voicemail at 402-519-5790. Other than that, I guess we'll see you at the next appointment.